Okay, question number one. What are the issues you consider when choosing an elected official?
I consider issues such as healthcare. The war in Iraq is really a big issue for me as well. And I also think about things like education. I have a young child, so that's a key issue for me.
Okay. Part two of that same question. What issues will you hold elected officials accountable for post-election?
Well, I recognize that a lot of the things that they promise, there's no way that they're going to possibly be able to accomplish those. And plus, you have to work, on a bipartisan level. So, you have a Democrat promising this, you have a Republican promising that, and really they need each other to get it accomplished. So, a lot of the promises that they make, I don't really think that they're going to be able to accomplish. But in terms of holding them accountable, I want to make sure that they're trying to accomplish those things. If I'm voting for them because they say they're going to initiate, some type of healthcare program, I want to see an effort towards initiating that healthcare program. It's really about their effort. I don't anticipate that they're going to be able to put everything into place that they promise, but in terms of holding them accountable, at least they need to try.
Absolutely. Question number two. How well represented do you feel by current elected officials, and how well served do you feel by the political system broadly?
Overall, I mean, I think that here in Vermont, we've got some really great elected officials on the national level. Bernie Sanders, Senator Leahy, I think that they represent Vermonters very well, as a matter of fact. Peter Welch, to a lesser degree, he's been there for a shorter period of time. But I do think that nationally, that I think we are represented quite well. I think that they understand what Vermonters want, what Vermonters need, what the concerns are, and I think that they do take that to Washington with them. Um, Maybe more so on a kind of a local level, not so much. And I don't think that a number of the people here, of our elected officials here, have really taken into account one of the things that I think is important is the changing demographics in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Vermont is steadily becoming more diverse, and very few of the candidates have even talked about this. We have a governor's race going on right now, hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
talked about, um, and it's something that they really need to take into consideration. One of the other situations that we have going on here in Vermont is that our population is rapidly aging, and that a lot of the younger people, I teach college, they graduate and they leave. They're not staying in Vermont, and we need that younger base to make the state grow. And so a lot of the local politicians aren't really looking at this, and it's something that we need to look at. And I wish that they would pay more attention to it. So in terms of how I feel they're representing the issues that I think are, more concerned here locally, they need to work on that.
Understood. Okay. Number three. Do you feel like your voice is being heard in the decisions that are made that affect your life?
Wow. Sort of. That's a really tough question, and the reason it's a tough question is because there's so many things that go into. Do I feel that my voice is being heard? Vermont is one of the great places where you can call up your local elected official because he lives down the street from you.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the Vermont State House. Your elected official lives down the street from you. You see them in the grocery store. You see them at the little league games or whatever. And so you do get an interaction with them that you might not get in some of the larger states. So on that level, I think that yes. I mean, I think that my voice is being heard. They're big into town meetings here. We are one of
Really?
the few states that have, town meeting days still, where people from the town get together and they, voice vote, hand vote. They talk about the issues in this type of forum. Very few states continue to do that, but we can because we're a small state. And I think that's really an interesting process, and I like that about Vermont. But sometimes I do feel that maybe some of the issues that I personally am concerned about aren't necessarily the concern of the majority of the population here, and so sometimes those concerns can fall by the wayside.
Understood. Okay. Number four is a little bit longer. How relevant or important to you is civic participation? For example, being a registered voter, voting, talking with your elected officials to ensure that your interests are being handled appropriately, serving on school boards, city councils, etc.
Well, I think that a lot of people complain
Mm-hmm.
and don't do anything about it.
Absolutely.
You don't have the right to complain if you don't participate. That's my that's that's my approach. So if you want to have some kind of say in your government, you need to have some type of participation in it. And at the very least, that involves voting. At the very least, that involves voting. I mean, you can take it, farther. Write to your congresspeople. Call your congresspeople. Make sure that they understand what you're thinking. I mean, it's really about taking an active role. The time for being passive is done. It's about stepping up, making sure that your voice is heard, making sure that people understand where you're coming from, what your concerns are. And if you're unwilling to do that, if you're unwilling to participate, to take an active role, you have no right to complain.
Absolutely. Question number 5. What change would you like to see in how you are represented by your elected officials and or how the issues that matter to you are being addressed by the system?
Oh wow! I think I would like to see more open forums. I would like to see our elected officials, national level, spend more time at home, um, so that so that they're not quite as distant from, from home and from the
Mm-hmm.
concerns of the people here. I think they're doing a really good job with that, but I think, spend a little bit more time here. Have a few more town meetings. Have some conversations with folks that are in your state to get a better sense of what's going on with them day to day. I mean, we have some unique concerns here, within the state of Vermont that someone in Arkansas might not have those same kinds of concerns or even really think about those kinds of concerns. And so I think it's important they spend some time here, just kind of polling the people, finding out what's going on.
That's it. Okay. Question number 6. How do you envision change in the political system happening? What will your role be in making that change happen?
I would really like to see a viable third party candidate. I think that would really shake things up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party kind of have this understanding that, you take these voters, we take these voters, and we'll kind of duke it out for these in the middle. And I'd like to see a viable third party candidate. Like I said, I think that they would make the race really interesting. Right now in Vermont, we have, in our governor's race, we have a three-way race for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
with a pretty viable third party candidate, at least a third party candidate who's getting heard. And I think that that allows a certain segment of the population to get their voices out there. If they're not Democrats, if they're not Republicans, where do they fall? And who's listening to them? And a lot of the politicians, if you can't vote for me, you know, sorry, you're not my responsibility, kind of thing. And so I think a third party candidate would really make things interesting.
Definitely. That completes the formal part of the interview. Just for a wrap up, can you tell us what we spoke about earlier about your career, what you currently do, your background, etc.?
Sure. Um, I currently teach. I'm an associate professor at St. Michael's College in Colchester, Vermont, and I currently teach in the journalism department. My main courses are media law and ethics. I'm a lawyer, and so former journalist, and I have a law degree, and so I combine my two interests in that one particular class. But I also teach writing, and I also teach. This semester, I'm teaching the internship class where our students go out and do work within different um, companies within the community. Um, but for me, my main area of interest is media law and ethics, and I find it really interesting because the study of the media literacy, the ability to understand how the media manipulates populations and how the law affects what the media does. It's really it's an interesting study, and people don't. I don't think people recognize how they are being manipulated by the media, and I think that's part of the challenge. Media literacy is so key to understand how the media affects you, from everything from the clothes you wear, the car you drive, everything. And so it's really interesting to me to study that and to see how people are affected by the media.
Do you have you seen your students be energized surrounding this election?
Absolutely, absolutely. For a lot of my students, this is the first time that they're actually getting to vote. And
Really?
so particularly in a national election.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are really pumped about the idea of getting out there. A lot of them are volunteering. A lot of them have traveled to New Hampshire, particularly New Hampshire, to campaign. to work with the campaigns. And so they are just so excited about it. They are so excited. And I think that in particular, the candidate, one particular candidate speaks to them, in terms of youth, in terms of energy. And I think that they are very energized by that.
Excellent. That is it.
Yeah?
Do you have anything else you'd like to
Go Obama. Sorry.
add?